My name is Rod Turner. I am the founder and president of Manhattan Street Capital. And I'm just going to briefly mention my background to give myself credibility with you, which is to say that I have in the past built as a top executive or as one of the founders, built 6 successful technology startup companies to liquid outcomes, 2 of which we took public to the NASDAQ. One of those was Symantec, the Norton antivirus company. I ran all of the largest mergers at Symantec, which included buying the Norton business, which is where we launched the Norton antivirus and made it into the leader in its space way back when. The market's been open for a long time. I've done a venture fund before, I've done an incubator before as well. So I have a lot of relevant experience. Manhattan Street Capital, I launched 6 years ago because of Reg A+, which is the funding instrument that David is using here for BiologX. I think it's an excellent fundraising method for the right companies. And I think over time, it's going to become a very, very big category. This year, probably $2.5 billion will be raised on Reg A+ offerings. Manhattan Street Capital, my company, is a funding platform and advisory service to companies to help them succeed in raising money using Reg A+. And we aim to do companies that we can succeed for and where we believe the investors will celebrate later that they found out about those companies through us because they're fantastic companies. That's our intent. Legal disclaimer, I am not, my company and we're not valuation professionals, we're not attorneys, we are not broker-dealers, and we're not underwriters. So just bear that knowledge in mind. I am here today to host this event. I'm not allowed to, and I won't be recommending an investment in any particular company where I'm hosting this event with David to provide a facilitation to communicate, for him to communicate to you, the audience. But I'm not sitting here saying, invest in this, invest in that. I'm not saying you should invest in BiologX because I can't from a regulatory standpoint. Oh, there was a mention there. So questions and answers we'll handle at the end. Yeah, thank you. Good for posting that. We will handle the questions and answers after the primary discussion. So now let me introduce David. David Wood is the CEO of BiologX, and he is going to be presenting the company and answering questions you may have about the company here. That's the point. This is sort of a CEO briefing with video, is what it really is. There will be recordings available of this afterwards for those of you who would like to see them, as well as to the people who intended to come but didn't make it today. And with that, I will hand over to David, and he's going to give a brief description of the business and so forth, and I'll chip in here and there to ask questions of my own as well as those that you post. If you post questions, please use the chat section. We'll attend to those questions starting at the top of the list, so that start as soon as you would like. We'll only deal with the questions that we can answer in a value-added way. So I'll select them, but starting at the top of the list, I will be asking those questions of David as well. So without more ado, please meet David Wood.
Thanks, Rod. So a quick introduction on BiologX. BiologX is an emerging company focused on reducing the cost of critical life-saving drugs. We've developed unique proprietary methods to produce these types of drugs, these bioengineered drugs, at markedly lower cost than current branded drugs are. Our initial focus is to come out with insulin and then later insulin analogs, simply because there's been an increasing need for an insulin that is affordably priced in the market. And there's been such a dearth of innovation within this particular category over the last 20 to 30 years. Our initial work We've gone through the preclinical trials, they call them. We're moving into human clinical trials. That's our next phase. Our initial work has shown that we are biosimilar to 2 branded insulins. In the FDA's process, they require us to prove biosimilarity to 1, but we're biosimilar to the 2 top branded insulins currently in the market today. We chose the Reg A capital raise simply because we believe our company should be available as our drug will to anybody who wants to invest. What we like about the Reg A process is that it allows Main Street investors, not just Wall Street investors, to participate. We chose it specifically for that reason, specifically because we're a greenfield organization. We're grassroots. We believe our patients and our customers are going to benefit from us, the unique user, and we believe that investors should have the same opportunity. I like a lot of questions as opposed to me getting on a podium, but I can't hear you. Try now.
Yeah. Okay, so you said insulin analogs. What does that mean?
Right. There is several products within insulin. You have the regular human insulin, which has been around for about 100 years. And then you have the other products. So insulin analogs are a combination of insulin and other ingredients so that there are longer acting, faster acting, shorter acting insulins. And then you even have insulin mixes, which would be a 70-30 split, say between regular human insulin and 30% fast acting, so that the insulin gets into the bloodstream and is activated that much quicker. Delivery mechanisms are everything from an injection, a syringe, through to pumps, to pens, all across these 4 different broad product categories within insulin. So I believe that insulin first, we come out with regular human insulin, and then we bring fast acting, long acting, et cetera, behind it.
Can you please shed light on your pricing intentions for the product when you get it in the market?
Sure. Our mission is to bring affordable, life-saving medicines to people who need them. So we aim to come in at a significantly lower price than any branded product is today for insulin or any insulin analog. It's great to have a life-saving drug, but it's even better to be able to be used by everybody who needs it and not have to choose between meals or medicine. So we will come out with an affordable, lower-priced insulin. I can't hear you.
What's happening is, for some reason, I have an echo, so Akash has been muting me when I'm not speaking, which is a good thing to do. So you described to me your protein-based technology because it enables you to produce new versions of drugs that already exist at lower cost. Could you explain that for the audience, David?
There's a global protein drug market, right? And protein drugs are those that use living cells as kind of the basis. If you look at a Tylenol or ibuprofen, those are medicines come in tablet form. Those are chemicals that are compounded together and developed within a lab or within a production facility that way. Ours are ingredients which are, if you would, incubated within biologic material like a cell. And so proteins are kind of the core of our insulin. So within the bioengineered protein drug market, you'll see these products now. It's coming up for cancer, diabetes, say autoimmune diseases, inflammation, which like Alzheimer's and such. So it's a broad product category across which, our platform, we call it a platform because we're not limited to simply coming out with insulin or insulin and insulin analogs. our process, our IP, is applicable across the broader spectrum of the bioengineered protein drug market. We are coming out initially with insulin and insulin analogs, and then our growth will take us into other therapeutic medicines.
Could you explain, I believe you intend to sell your insulin direct to the consumer. Could you explain the rationale behind that?
There is a complicated process on the distribution channel today in the pharmaceutical industry and medicines overall. Right? One thing that you've started to see evolve now are more direct consumer networks. Amazon has come out with their own direct consumer pharmacy. You have GoodRx. You have several who are now advertising, on local media. And we believe that the direct to consumer allows us to ensure that our low price point stays low through to the consumer. There will be, we want to be able to deliver the low price to the people who need it, not to the middlemen in the current distribution network. So we're establishing an independent distribution network, and we're also working on partnerships with those established now who have direct-to-consumer capabilities so that we have a broader distribution network than simply our own. That allows us to be transparent. Our pricing goes right to the consumer. Doesn't get stepped inflated as much as we can avoid it by going through the distribution network, the wholesalers, the pharmacies, and especially the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers.
Here we go. There's an interesting question here, which someone has some specific knowledge. It's fair enough. Could you confirm that this technology was from patents with Dr. Zimmerman from his previous work? If so, were all the patents brought into BiologX? If not, I think, well, I'll ask the first question first. Do you have the patents for and Dr. Zimmerman involved in this company?
This is a new development. It says it is not tied to any other work that he's done before. So this is a new process, new products, and we are keeping them secretive through trade secrets at this present time. We can at some point go through the patent process, but we think that we will be able to be more protective of our IP by keeping it as a trade secret than publishing it across the patent office.
Thank you. Then could you talk to how much money the company wants to raise in this offering?
We laid it out in the offering circular, and I mean, if you go back to that, we'll keep it there. There are 50 million, which is the upside that you always go for because Reg A allows you to get there. But then we also have two step function categories. We can be extremely viable with 10 to 50 million and have the plans in place to take us into commercialization, depending upon the amount of money we raise.
I want to ask another question here. That's a good one. Is the new process proven to be more cost effective, allowing you to come in to bring it out to the market at a lower price point and still be profitable?
Short answer is yes. I mean, we've proven it within our own labs and within our own functions, and comparing it against what we know to be the processes that are used in the current market space. We have the technology that is going to enable us to continue to guarantee the low prices. Just in a broader category on the production process, there are 28 major steps in the production process within our competitors. There are 8 to 9 within ours. So our technology has enabled us to really ratchet down the amount of steps that we need to go through in order to come up with a purified product at the end.
I'm looking at the questions here. And a question I'm going to sort of modify that question. What plans do you have for liquidity for investors, David? To the extent you're prepared to discuss that.
The liquidity events occur in multiple ways. I mean, what we expect, we can do. The Reg A allows us the selling of shares, and then there are several ways for liquidity in that. Right, we could then bring BiologX onto an IPO. Liquidity event occurs at an IPO. There are also alternative trading platforms that exist now that enable the individual investor with shares such as BiologX to trade them on one of those platforms as well. And there's several that exist today. So we believe that the liquidity will come that way. And when appropriate, we'll make ourselves available on those alternative trading platforms and then determine if we need to go for an IPO or if not.
Could you that was a little bit vague, frankly. I mean, are you planning to do an IPO with this Reg A plus? You could do that. Or is that further out? I mean, that's a seriously big step, isn't it?
Well, it's a seriously big step. And I believe that the amount of money that it requires for us to go to an IPO today would be better utilized in our commercialization and development process. It'll take, as you know, multiple millions, several millions to get to plan for an IPO, to structure the IPO and to bring it to the market. And at this phase of our growth, I would rather spend the money on our products than on an IPO. Down the road, 2-3 years down the road, I have absolutely all plan and intent to bring this to an IPO.
I want to comment on what those alternative trading systems are for the audience's benefit. And then I'd like you to comment more about your thinking on that. You sort of, you discussed it, but it was a little vague. And that may be what you need to, you want to keep it vague for now. But still, for the audience's benefit, there's a new category of exchange where shares that are public in a Reg A plus, in a Reg A plus, the SEC says that your shares, if you invest, are immediately public. It's a public offering as far as the SEC is concerned, which is not the same thing as an initial public offering. And it's not the same thing as meaning that the shares are listed someplace. But the SEC is saying, yes, you can sell your shares if you have a buyer, which is a nice thing about Reg A plus. The alternative trading systems that David touched on are simple marketplaces where people can buy and sell shares that are public, but it doesn't require. The biggest advantage of it is that, in my view, for a company's point of view, that there are people can buy shares and they can sell shares on the ATS. There are no shorts and there are no naked shorts. And in my view, just looking at the markets, the ability of stockbrokers to put naked shorts, they don't have to borrow in order to short a stock, is a very damaging prospect for companies that aren't ready to deal with that. So that's the reason why I think ATSs are good. And I'd like to ask you to shed a bit more light, if you're comfortable or not, David, on the ATS front, because you mentioned that too.
I believe it's small companies and investors to be liquid while if they don't want to wait for the IPO. As far as the time, all investment that's coming in now is going to be used to bring our products to the market. And when we get to the stage where we're comfortable diverting cash flow into such platforms, we'll definitely do that.
Your audio was freezing there for a moment, but now it's better. Something changed and it's better. Bear with me. What is your monthly burn rate? What are your sales? How do you plan to get sales?
We currently don't have a product on the market, so our sales will be coming. Our sales pipeline is going to be as broad as we can make it. So currently there are multiple paths to distribution. You go through, you find a wholesaler finds a retailer, and then you go forward. We also, while following that path, we also want to create our own, as we talked before, a direct-to-consumer pathway, our own online marketplace. And we also plan on going direct to large users, hospital networks, large pharmacy networks, and create the path to as broad of commercialization as we can. And at the right time, we'll bring on a sales and marketing industry experts who can bring us to the right people and expand our sales pipeline that way. But we'll start with our own. We can create our own marketplace today, which we're going to do. And we can start working with larger hospital networks and anybody in the pharmacies as we go through this clinical phase. Because what we want to do is marry up the FDA approval with the ability to sell as soon as it occurs. So in the course of that time frame, over the next 24 to 28 months, we'll build out that capability and that capacity. So when we do get FDA approval, which we fully expect, we'll have the capability to immediately hit the ground running and start the sales.
What about international?
International is a clear opportunity for us. A product, our process will give us a product that will give us the ability to produce in the United States and ship internationally. We will at some point locate, over in Europe, we'll locate in areas where it makes sense to have a separate facility. But for now, we can reasonably ship into international markets with our products being made in the United States and still be profitable. So that's our secondary market. The first one is the United States for various reasons. And then Europe, let's say United States and North America, and then we go into Europe and Asia Pacific.
Good. The good question here, does not having a patent hurt your chances for global acceptance of the product?
We don't believe so. We don't believe not having a patent limits us at all. And there is a number of companies within the pharmaceutical industry that rely on trade secrets as well. Where necessary, we can go with a patent. What we want to be able to do and what our process allows us to do is to be self-contained. I don't need a mega facility that are blocks long and blocks wide that currently produce this type of product. We can come up with a very contained, couple 100,000 square foot space that allows us to control our process. And we will control the production area and those people who come in it. And furthermore, we're going to control separately from that those who produce the API, the core of the product, the core insulin, before it's fermented and extracted across the production process. So by doing that, we limit those who have knowledge of our process to less than 5. And that protects us. A patent protects, to me, a patent is the ability to spend a lot of money on lawsuits. Because once you start to produce the patent process, they release the information within 18 months. And then you're forever with people trying to take your process outlined in the patent and knock it off, break it, and reverse engineer it, and you're forever spending legal fees. Something we're not averse to doing, but something I'd rather do is just control that IP in perpetuity.
Let me add to that. I have a lot of experience in business, and there are a number of companies, very large public companies, as well as companies that are funded via blue chip venture capitalists who really know what they are doing, lots of good companies, where they choose this path. So it is a legitimate path to pursue, and I see that happening fairly often. Okay, I noticed in the Reg A offering, it says there's a mention of penny stocks. I'm not aware of a mention of penny stocks in the Reg A offering. Are you? Oh, it's a risk factor or something?
It might be one of the risk factors. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any discussion in the offering documents about that, but maybe there is. So this is a risky market. As an investor, how many shares will be available outside of restricted shares once you are public in the market? Price point mentioned is forward thinking, of course, but in order to attain. Well, that's a difficult question to answer. So basically, I'm going to suggest that, not suggest, I mean, if you look at the offering circular, it defines now how many shares the company has in what state and what shares will be issued through the Reg A plus. And any company in this kind of raise, they only issue the shares that are purchased. So when you see big numbers in there tied to, a much larger raise potential, that is only if the company raises that money from that many shareholders. Okay, so moving on down the list. Has there been any yeah, I think, yes, I'll ask you the question. Has there been any consideration to cheaper alternatives for an IPO like reverse merger? It isn't really cheaper to do a reverse merger unless you've already raised the capital. So, I'm not sure that it's always cheaper. And to buy a good shell today, the prices are very high for good shells because there's so many companies doing reverse mergers at the moment. So I'm not sure that I would say that's less expensive. I think it's more expensive than doing a Reg A plus IPO. But David hasn't said he's doing a Reg A plus IPO. He's doing a public offering via Reg A plus. Are there any competitive biosimilar companies and technologies out there that you're aware of? If so, if so, what's your differentiator from these other people that are going to or who are theoretically already competing with your type of method, David?
There's nobody competing with that type of method. And when you go, the FDA requires you to provide information. As a producer, you need to tell the FDA how I'm making it, what I'm doing. So it's easy to see if anybody is going for any sort of approval from the FDA that would have comparable processes. And so far, nobody has. As with our knowledge of the industry, we don't see anybody coming out with our process. We see a lot of replication of a modification to the existing methods being used for insulin production. And there are a lot of other companies who are trying to come out with insulins that are going to give them the capability to bring, in my own view, bring expensive insulins to the market so that their particular shareholders and stakeholders can take advantage of the price points that exist today. I see nobody who is going to come out and produce an insulin with the distinct method, the distinct goal of making it affordable for everybody to use.
There's a question here about how have you funded the operations in the last year and today, actually, if you want to shed light on that.
Simply put, we've been self-funded.
Fair enough. So I'm just going to scan through the other questions here. How are we doing on time? We're on schedule. That's nice. There's a new message that popped up the minute I said that. As a potential investor here and someone who personally lost someone from diabetes complications, I understand the magnitude of what you are doing, especially if it comes to market. I am interested in this investment and I have liquidity myself to support it. But if I can't trade your shares with a large investor pool on a public exchange, why would I invest now? High risk, high vulnerability. That's a very good question.
Very good question. I know the need for insulin that's affordable is dramatic. And unless there are other companies out there which have not been identified, the only one who's going to be able to bring to market and insulin analogs that will change the game is biologics. So,
But he's asking it.
What?
I'm sorry, David. You go ahead. I'll ask.
I'm sorry.
Well, he's asking though. He's asking if you aren't liquid, why would I do this? That's why he's saying if it's not liquid, because it seems too risky.
Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. Any investment is risky by the very nature of it being an investment. You have to believe that what we're doing is worthwhile. You have to believe that we have the capability of coming to market. I can tell you all day long, I know we can come to market. And I know this is the only way I want to do business. I have no intent on bringing any kind of drug to market that's as priced, just so high a price that we see today. There's no need for it. Nobody benefit. The people who need it don't benefit from it. So you have to believe in what we're doing. You have to believe in how we're going to get there. And you have to believe in the team that's identified across our website and your sites as someone who can bring it to market. If you're looking for immediate liquidity, then I would just say you probably want to invest on, the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange on some existing company today.
I want to comment on that, and I'm not commenting now on BiologX because I'm not allowed to recommend any particular investment. But what I can say is that it is the case that there are numerous biotech companies where during their preclinical stage, before they get FDA approval, their valuations are relatively low and they can be invested in at such a price. And then once they hit the market and FDA approval, which isn't guaranteed, but once they reach that point, one of two things occurs. They get bought out for a very, very high price. In general, I'm talking in general, or they go public. I mean, they go list, because this company will be public after the Reg A Plus, but it isn't listed automatically. That's a separate decision for David to make, and you can tell he's not ready to make a commitment as to where he may list the company. But nevertheless, that story about what happens in biotech and why we can raise money for biotech companies that have a long lead time on them, usually quite a long lead time, is because the upside later on becomes gigantic. In that case, if it was a company making tractors growing at 15 or 20 or 30% a year, and now we've got a better engine for it, that would be a different story because the upside is so modest. Anyway, let me see this. After the Reg A Plus is filled, what are the next steps while waiting for mass acceptance of your product? How will you further gather funds from investors moving forward without the ability for the shares to be purchased on an open exchange or even over the counter? Same question, really. So, I have one thing to say on that, which is obvious, which is that one of the nice things about Reg A Plus is you can do one every year. You're not required to do it once and never come back. You can do one every year back to back. You can even arrange it so you stop one and start the next one the next day if you choose to, which doesn't mean that isn't answering the liquidity question. It's a separate question.
Well, I think, with a successful Reg A, and as we go through the FDA approval process, the ability for us to raise capital if we need it gets easier. So we get our goals on the Reg A allow us independence of operation so that I'm not necessarily mandated to go out and raise capital in order to continue. That's one of the reasons why we have the step functions across the Reg A that we have. Each milestone allows us to be commercially viable and operational, and I do not need additional capital to bring a product to market. It allows me to bring it, the higher the raise, the more products I get to bring out immediately, and I can start, if you would, constructing my own independent facility. When I go through, as you pointed out, as I go through the FDA process and milestones, the risk becomes less and less. We get an IND approval by the FDA, the risk profile falls substantially for the company. That allows us to go and get risk-averse capital. Once we get into contracts, we can leverage the contracts to go and get debt capital. And then once we get FDA approval, then even the banks will start lending us money at that stage. So the Reg A gets us the core amount of capital we need to be successful with the product launches. And then with the product launches, that will afford us a wide capability to go after several different levels of capital raises. So the Reg A gives us what we need, is the bottom line.
You mentioned if we hit our goal with the Reg A Plus, what are your plans in the event that you don't hit your goal?
Keep raising money until they do it. We're not stopping. This is a product that is needed in the marketplace. We started this company to fulfill a need. We didn't start this company to be profiteers. So we have invested, as any entrepreneur does, blood, sweat, tears, capital, everything we have, and we will continue to do so until we are successful. So if the Reg A, which I don't expect, I expect the Reg A to be successful simply because the people who need the product now have the capability to take care of themselves. They can bring us to market. Diabetic patients who are just paying astronomical prices and making some horrific family choices can bring us to market with a simple investment if they can afford to and if they so choose. That allows us to be successful. The fact that we're serving a need and not serving a profit allows us to be successful. And we're not stopping until we are. So failure is not an option because I don't see it as a justifiable, viable outcome. If I have to, I'll take VC money.
Yeah. Good. I think we've covered the ground adequately here. This has been a good session. If anyone has any last minute questions to post that I think are appropriate, then I'll bring them up. But this has been good, David. This has been good. What percentage of the Reg A? Yeah, David has chosen not to announce so far how much of the Reg A Plus he's raised. It's really early days. What's this? My father was diabetic and I watched the struggle, and having this product to market and the history of those on the biologics team is very impressive. I'm excited about the direction thus far.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap. Thank you, everybody. I've enjoyed this, David. Great to be in business with you and helping you do your raise here. That's what we specialize in. And you can follow up with emails to David. Perhaps, Akash, you could put David's email in the chat box there, and that would be nice. And I encourage you to follow up on the discussions with David one-on-one in that method. Or you can just post questions via the offering page at Manhattan Street Capital. You can already do that. Post comments on the offering page. There you go. That's the email address. So that's good.
It's great. Thanks, Rod. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I hope you had a good time and enjoyed a good time. Pardon me. I hope you found it informative. And it's good to see you, David. It's good to see you, and I know you believe very strongly in what you're doing, and that came through. That was nice. All right.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.